Welcome to Marketing Without the Marketing. I'm your host, Michael Bosey. Thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. All right, so we're talking about social media marketing. Last episode, we were talking about making real connections, providing real value, using the social space to build your audience. But channel selection makes a huge difference in this too, and that's the topic of today's episode. Really, really important. I mean, you choose your words carefully. You've got to choose your medium carefully too. And there's an art to this. The small nuances can make a huge difference, to whether your content connects or not. And the delivery is as much a part of the content as the content itself. Is it the message you intend, or is it working against you? And what's more, where does your audience want to hear from you? If you choose the wrong medium, your message may never be heard, or even worse, it may hit the wrong note. Now, the great thing about social media is that it allows you the chance to make frequent connections with your audience. Now, blogs are great for that, especially for people who are running a small business, nonfiction writers, something where you're trying to teach. I mean, it's really a great medium for that. You're an expert in your realm, in whatever sector you're in, and you got something to share, right? That's why you do this. That's why you're trying to connect. That's why you use a content strategy. And for that, you do need a central point for substantive content, one that facilitates easy sharing between your readers. Now, while a blog is really important to that, having a blog alone is not going to do it. There are millions of blogs out there. No one is going to randomly stumble across your blog. You've got to draw folks in based on the things that I talked about in the last episode, where you're inviting people, attracting them, and then conversing with them. Now, you're not going to get found amid all the noise that's out there, so you got to build these hooks. And that right there is where social media comes in. You got to draw people in with these teasers. All right, so you know how to do this, or you know the theory behind that, right? The obvious thing to do is through social channels, but you've got to pick these carefully, because just by virtue of the fact that you're selecting a certain social channel, that selection alone is going to say something about you. So let's talk about some generalizations about each of the social channels that might help inform which platform you choose. Now, these are pretty general, so I don't want to take this as sort of, this for sure is where your audience is if you sort of fit into this. That's not the case. You want to be where your audience is. If you say, hey, look, I don't like Twitter, but that's where your audience is, well, you better learn to like Twitter. And trust me, you will. If you're connecting with an audience and it's making a difference to your business, you'll come to like it. And a good thing to do, if you can, is to try to eliminate as many channels as possible. So if you find that your audience is mostly on LinkedIn, well, great. That's a really good piece of information, because that means that now you can focus on that alone, and maybe you can get rid of some of the other channels. I mean, that would be fantastic. All right, so let's go through some of the major channels and just talk about sort of the characteristics. Now, of course, I'd start with Twitter, because by far that's my best channel. I mean, my business is a B2B business, and Twitter's great for B2B businesses because it's an open network. That means it's really great for new connections, for making new connections. It's really good for real-time search. Really, really active. Tends to be sort of text-based social content, though they're making more of an effort to do images and videos. Now, Facebook is by far the biggest social network platform. I mean, its growth has been unbelievable. They had their first 1 billion user day last month, which was amazing. But look, it's a closed network. They handle multimedia pretty well. Now they're making a huge push to do more video and native video, meaning not a link to YouTube content, but video that you upload directly to Facebook. Gets a nice treatment in the platform, so they're clearly trying to push towards that. But let's face it, it's a lot better for reconnecting with people that you already know. Facebook pages can be useful. I have some clients who get a lot out of them, so it can be really great. It's not super valuable for me, but again, you got to choose the platform that works for you and your audience. Now, LinkedIn is another one of the big four. Again, closed network. It's sort of invite only, really limited towards professional content. So you don't want to be posting pictures of your kids and your pets there. This is really meant to be sort of a space for professionals to connect, network, to sort of extend your business. And so you really want to keep it limited to that. It's not that great at any multimedia content, still tends to be very text-based, but with a lot of the acquisitions that they've made in the recent past, they're trying to get better at that. And really, if you're looking to connect with people on a professional level, you have to be on LinkedIn. It's as simple as that. Okay, Google Plus. I tend to like Google Plus just because it's a semi-open network. I mean, you do some inviting of folks so that you have sort of a clutch of people that you interact with. The audience tends to be characterized as young and tech savvy. But really, when it comes down to it, I think it's worth being on Google Plus just to boost your search rankings. Now, Google will say that it doesn't make a difference, but trust me, it absolutely does. It's going to help form another hook to a blog post, for instance. So while I'm not there to make connections per se, though there is a group of folks that I definitely am in contact with on Google Plus, most often when I launch a podcast episode, a blog post, I'll at least do one really good post on Google Plus so that it gives the Google bots an understanding of, oh, hey, here's this content over here. I get it. It gives a little help to that, which is great. All right, Instagram. Probably the fastest growth recently. It's a Facebook property, so Facebook purchased Instagram. Tends to be more of a closed network, though there are, discoverability tools, definitely focused on visual content. Obviously, they're, given the fact that they give you a lot of tools, some cool filters and things so that you can manipulate your images, it's really meant to be sort of beautiful, artistic content. And, a lot of marketers are using this to good effect. And especially if your brand deals in visuals, this can be a really wonderful thing. It's just a little limited in what you can do with links. So there are some tricks to get around that. For instance, I think you only get one link at this point, and that's in your profile page. So you can think of some clever ways to do that where you say, click on the profile, and it might help you link from your Instagram profile to a blog post, to your website, to somewhere where you want your audience to go. But really, you got to make a pretty big choice if it's one link out and that's all you get. Okay, sticking with visual content, you got Flickr and Pinterest. Pinterest is another one that's been really super popular in the visual content realm. The audience tends to be predominantly women, and it's kind of a scrapbooking app, right? So it's people who like to sort of collect and curate this image-based content, and they're really good about linking. I mean, it's easy to see why they've grown really quickly. So if your audience is, again, sort of focused on this sort of collection and curation of images, and you could imagine, crafting would be really big with that, or images of food, any sort of hobby or any sort of thing about your business that is visual, that could be really helpful. Flickr. And I have to add Flickr too, even though it's probably not as prevalent in the image-based content as Pinterest and or Instagram. I like it just because it's an open network. You can do sort of portfolio content. It tends to be sort of photographs only. It's not really big on video or short video clips like Instagram can handle. So, I mean, if you're sharing photos, albums, collections, it's another sort of alternative to Pinterest and tends to be a little bit more open than either Pinterest and or Instagram. Now, in the multimedia realm, there's a few that you could pay attention to as well. If you're producing video content, I mean, obviously YouTube is it's the second biggest social network overall. And of course, the biggest one dedicated to video. It's a Google property. So Google will tend to favor this in search again. So really important, tends to be a very open network. So it's very easy to discover content. And if your brand is doing any video content whatsoever, you have to be on YouTube. It's just that simple. It's just too big to ignore. Now for audio content, one of my favorite apps is SoundCloud. Again, open network. Tends to be a way to collect these small collections of audio content. So if you're doing things like podcasts, it's a great thing for that. and anything else that you're doing in terms of audio content. I mean, this is a great place to do this. It's just great at hosting and organizing audio content. And lastly, I'll talk about Tumblr, because Tumblr is sort of it takes any content, tends to be more visual, though it's really good at handling audio as well. So SoundCloud works really well with it. YouTube works really well with it. It is really optimized to have really nice, large image displays on there, so it's really good for photographs too. And some people kind of use it as a blogging platform. It's a really simple, very easy to use, with some limitations. I would say it's not nearly as robust as something like WordPress or Blogger, but you could get away with running a blog on this. So sort of think of this as it's like Twitter for images, video, and audio, just really good at handling multimedia content. Now, this list is not meant to be exhaustive by any means. I mean, there are tons of different social channels out there, and there are plenty of folks who use each of these networks in a way that was not intended, getting great results. But like I said, you don't want to post pictures of your kids or pets on LinkedIn. You have Facebook for that, right? And you probably don't want to post things that are really hyper detailed about your professional world on Facebook, because that's not why people are there. It might be interesting once in a while, but that's not what they're there for, right? They're there to connect with their family, with their friends, to share things. So you don't want that to be too professional if that's the case, And when it comes down to it, I mean, this is a really important part of your content strategy. Your content, you spend a lot of time on it. It deserves to be in the proper medium. And you're going to do this process of channel selection with sort of the spirit of experimentation. Find out which of these outlets is the best for you. But again, one thing that's really good is, let your audience decide. They already assemble somewhere, right? So go where they congregate. There's really no point in trying to change the behavior of your audience. It's really hard enough to build a community or an audience. It takes a lot of energy. So don't spend that energy sort of, fighting a battle that you can't win. Just let your audience make the decision for you. If your audience loves Instagram, fantastic. I mean, they've just made a huge decision for you. They've just saved you a ton of time. If they're on Twitter, same thing. If they're on Facebook and you can run only a Facebook page, I mean, that would be the best news that you could hear, that you don't have to be managing all of these different social networks. You can really focus on the one or two that's going to yield the best results for you. And that's part of making this a strategy. Do it well, but also make it manageable. Making it manageable is actually going to allow you to produce better content because you don't have to be all over the place. You can focus and just do that wherever your audience is. Okay, so I hope that you find that to be helpful. Just as an overview of all these social channels, I'd love to hear from you. If you'd leave a comment on the show page, what's worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? What did you go into with some expectations and, the certain social channel or your audience surprised you? Let's hear from you. What were your strategies? Where did you have to iterate? Where did you have to pivot? Where did you have to delete a channel or not use it anymore? I would love to hear your experiences with this too. Really appreciate you listening as always, and we'll see you on the next episode.